A proposal the crystalline spires of Nexus Station gleamed against the star field as Ambassador Zephyra approached the human delegation quarters. Her violet skin shimmered with nervous energy, the bioluminescent patterns along her neck pulsing. Rapidly, a clear sign of distress among the Cirith people. Marcus Vale, the Human Coalition's chief negotiator, looked up from his holographic briefings as she entered. At 42, Marcus had seen enough diplomatic crisis to recognize desperation when it walked through his door. The young Cirith woman before him carried herself with royal bearing, yet her large, opalescent eyes betrayed fear. "Ambassador Vale," Zephyra began, her voice melodic but strained, "I come with an unusual request that may sound unprecedented." Marcus gestured to the chair across from his desk. "After 3 years of failed negotiations between our peoples, I'm willing to hear anything that might bring peace." Zephyra's tentacles, delicate appendages that serve as secondary arms, twisted nervously. "You must marry my mother." The silence stretched between them like the void of space. Marcus blinked, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "High Matron Zareth," Zephyra continued, her voice gaining strength. "She is the supreme ruler of the Cirith Dominion, and she trusts no one. Our people have been betrayed too many times by false promises. But if she were to bond with a human to truly bond, she might finally believe in the possibility of lasting peace." Marcus leaned back, studying the alien woman. The war between their civilizations had cost millions of lives across dozens of systems. If there was even a chance. "This bonding, it's not just ceremonial, is it?" "No," Zephyra admitted. "Among our people, the neural bonding creates a permanent psychic link. You would share thoughts, emotions, memories. She would know your intentions are pure because she could feel them." The weight of the proposal settled on Marcus's shoulders. He thought of his daughter back on Earth, of the countless human colonies, living in fear of Cirith raids. "And you believe this would work? My mother is complex." Zephyra's patterns flickered darker. "She has been betrayed by those she trusted most. But she respects strength and honor. If a human were willing to undergo our most sacred ritual, to open his mind completely to her, she might finally see that your people truly desire peace." Marcus stood, walking to the viewport overlooking the neutral zone. Ships from both civilizations patrolled the boundaries, weapons charged, ready for war. "What aren't you telling me, Zephyra?" The young ambassador's silence spoke volumes. Finally, she whispered, "My mother has changed since the last attempts at peace. She has grown powerful beyond measure, and some say she no longer thinks like others of our kind. But she is still my mother, and she is the only one who can command the Cirith fleets to stand down." Marcus turned back to her. "When would this ceremony take place?" "Tomorrow, if you agree. The High Matron awaits your answer on the Cirith homeworld." Looking into Zephyra's desperate eyes, Marcus made the decision that would change everything. "I accept." The ceremony of the Cirith homeworld of Vorthic was a study in organic architecture. Its cities grown rather than built, spiraling towers of living coral reaching toward purple skies. Marcus stood in the chamber of eternal bonds, surrounded by thousands of Cirith nobles whose bioluminescent patterns created a hypnotic light show of anticipation. High Matron Zareth entered like a force of nature. Unlike her daughter's delicate beauty, she was imposing, nearly 7 feet tall, her midnight blue skin marked with silver neural pathways that pulsed with inner light. Her forearms moved with predatory grace, and her eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire star systems. "Marcus Vale," her voice resonated through the chamber without amplification, somehow speaking directly into his mind. "You would bind yourself to me, knowing what I am?" "I would bind myself to peace," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the fear crawling up his spine. "For both our peoples." Zareth's laugh was like distant thunder, spoken like a true diplomat. We shall see if your thoughts remain so noble when our minds merge. The ceremony began with chants in the ancient Sirith language, their harmonics creating vibrations that seemed to reach into Marcus's bones. Hierophant Quell, the chief priest, approached with a crown of living neural fibers that writhed like tiny serpents. The crown of synaptic unity, Quell intoned, will forge a connection between your minds that cannot be broken, even by death. Are you prepared, human? Marcus nodded, though every survival instinct screamed at him to run. As the crown touched his head, pain exploded through his skull. Neural pathways that had never existed suddenly blazed to life, creating new connections, new sensations. Through the agony, he felt Zareth's mind touching his vast, ancient, and hungry. So incredibly hungry. Her thoughts were like an ocean of consciousness, and he was drowning in its depths. Welcome, little human, her mental voice whispered. Let me show you what you've truly agreed to. Visions flooded his mind. Sirith soldiers not as conquerors, but as farmers. Their raids motivated by starvation, as their homeworld slowly died. He saw Zareth's rise to power, her desperate attempts to save her people by any means necessary. But beneath it all, something else stirred a darkness that fed on neural energy, growing stronger with each mind it consumed. The ceremony concluded with their hands joined, silver light passing between them. The crowd erupted in celebration, but Marcus felt only a growing dread. In the corner of his vision, he caught sight of Zephyra, her expression not one of joy but of profound sadness. As the festivities continued, Marcus found himself alone with his new bride. Zareth's mental touch was constant now, a presence in his mind that felt less like sharing and more like being slowly devoured. You begin to understand, she said aloud, her voice now carrying harmonics that bypassed his ears entirely. The bond is not what my daughter told you it was. What have you done to me? Marcus managed to ask. I have made you part of something greater, Zareth replied, her four arms spreading wide. Your people speak of evolution, of becoming more than what they were. I am evolution incarnate, and you, my dear husband, are the key to bringing that gift to all of humanity. 3 days after the bonding ceremony, Marcus woke to find Zephyra gone. Her quarters were empty, her belongings undisturbed, as if she had simply vanished from existence. The Sirith guards claimed no knowledge of her whereabouts, their bioluminescent patterns flickering in what Marcus had learned was their equivalent of a shrub. My daughter has always been independent, Zareth said when Marcus brought his concerns to her. They sat in her private chambers, a living space that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. She likely returned to her research station in the Outer Rim. But Marcus felt the lie through their neural link, tasting deception like copper in his mouth. The bond that was supposed to create trust had become a prison, and he was beginning to understand that honesty flowed only one way. The mental connection had grown stronger, more invasive. Marcus found himself losing track of time, standing in corridors with no memory of how he'd arrived there. Worse, he was beginning to hear whispers, not from Zareth, but from voices that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Help us. She feeds. The hunger never stops. Captain Jorik, the Sirith military commander, who had initially escorted Marcus to the planet, was the first to die. They found him in his quarters, his neural pathways burned out, his face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. The official report claimed a malfunction in his bioneural implants, but Marcus knew better. Through the bond, he had felt Zareth's satisfaction as the captain's life force joined the growing darkness in her mind. The second death came 2 days later. Counselor Vex, one of the few Sirith nobles who had openly supported the peace negotiations, was discovered in the archives, his mind completely erased. His body functioned, but his consciousness was gone, leaving behind only an empty shell. Marcus confronted Zareth in her throne room, where she sat surrounded by floating neural pods containing the bioluminescent patterns of dozens of Cirith minds. "You're killing them," he accused, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "I am preserving them," she replied, her mental voice now carrying the harmonics of multiple consciousness. "Each mind that joins me makes the collective stronger. Soon, we will have enough power to extend this gift to your people. This isn't evolution, it's parasitism." Zareth's laugh contained the echoes of all the minds she had consumed. "You humans are so limited in your thinking. You see death where I see transcendence. Each consciousness that joins me lives forever, becomes part of something greater. And Zephyra? What happened to her?" For the first time, Zareth's mental presence faltered. She disagreed with the necessity of our methods. She has been placed somewhere safe while she reconsiders her position. Through the bond, Marcus felt the truth. Zephyra was alive but imprisoned, her own neural pathways being slowly drained to feed her mother's growing power. The daughter who had arranged this marriage had become its first victim that night. As Marcus lay in his quarters, trying to block out the whispers of consumed minds, he was visited by an unexpected presence. A figure materialized from the shadows, another. Cirith, but different from any he had seen before. "You are the human who bonded with the false matron," the figure said, her voice carrying an authority that made the walls themselves seem to listen. "Who are you?" Marcus whispered. "I am Nissa, the true daughter of the woman you knew as Zareth. And I have been waiting a very long time for someone like you to arrive." The truth revealed Nissa moved like liquid shadow through the corridors of the royal palace, leading Marcus deeper into sections he had never seen before. Her bioluminescent patterns were different from other Cirith. Instead of the flowing, organic designs, her markings formed geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change as she moved. "The creature you married," Nissa explained as they descended. "Ancient stairways carved from living stone, consumed my mother's consciousness 15 years ago. She has been wearing her identity like a mask ever since." Marcus felt his world tilting. Then who is she? Something that should have remained buried in the deep places of our world. We call her the Void-Touched, one of the first Cirith to experiment with neural manipulation. She was banished centuries ago, but she found ways to survive, to grow stronger. They entered a vast underground chamber where hundreds of Cirith hung in crystalline pods, their bodies preserved, but their minds clearly elsewhere. Among them, Marcus recognized several faces from the royal court. "She feeds on consciousness," Nissa continued, her voice heavy with grief. "Each mind she consumes adds to her power, but also to her hunger. She can never stop, never be satisfied." "And Zephyra?" Nissa's patterns flickered with pain. "The girl you knew as Zephyra is actually Kithara, another of the consumed. The creature puppet mastered her body, used her memories to play the part of a concerned daughter. The real Zephyra," she gestured to one of the pods, where a younger Cirith floated in stasis. "She has been here for decades." Marcus stared at the pod, feeling sick. "Why didn't you stop this? Why didn't you warn anyone?" "I tried." Nissa's voice carried centuries of frustration. "But who would believe that their beloved High Matron was an imposter? The creature learned to play the part perfectly, using the memories of those she consumed. She built support, eliminated opposition, and slowly transformed our society into a feeding ground. But why bond with me? Why involve humans at all?" Nissa's patterns shifted to deep red, the Cirith equivalent of alarm. "Because she's reached the limit of what she can consume here. The human mind is different from ours, more chaotic, more creative. She believes that by bonding with a human, she can learn to process human consciousness, to feed on your entire species." Marcus felt the neural link pulse with sudden activity. Through it, he sensed Zareth's awareness of his location, her growing anger at his absence. "She knows where we are," he said. "Of course she does." The bond works both ways, but she's been careful to shield her true thoughts from you. Until now. Nissa began moving toward another exit. We need to reach the neural amplification chamber. It's the only place where the connection can be severed. As they ran through the underground passages, Marcus felt Zareth's presence pressing against his mind, trying to assert control. His vision blurred, and for a moment, he saw through her eyes, dozens of Cirith guards streaming through the palace, searching for him. Fight her, Nissa urged. The bond may be strong, but you're still human. Your mind works differently than she expects. Marcus focused on memories of Earth, of his daughter, of everything that made him human. The pressure in his head lessened, but he knew it wouldn't last long. They reached the amplification chamber, just as the first guards appeared behind them. The room was dominated by a massive neural interface, its biomechanical components pulsing with the rhythm of a heartbeat. If we can reverse the polarity of the bonding matrix, Nissa explained, working frantically at the controls, we can not only sever your connection, but potentially disrupt her control over all the minds she's consumed. Will it kill her? It will force her back to her original form, weakened, vulnerable. But Marcus, there's something else you need to know. The real reason she chose you specifically. Marcus felt a chill. What do you mean? Your daughter. Back on Earth, she's not just any human. She's part of a genetic line that produces natural psionics. The creature didn't just want to bond with any human. She wanted to bond with you so she could trace the connection back to your daughter, to use her as a conduit to reach every human mind in the galaxy. The chamber doors exploded inward, and Zareth entered, her form now terrible to behold. She had abandoned all pretense of appearing normal. Her true shape was writhing mass of neural pathways and consumed consciousness, held together by raw psychic energy. You cannot stop what I have become, she said, her voice now a chorus of all the minds she had devoured. I am evolution itself, and I will not be denied my feast. The final gambit, the neural amplification chamber, became a battleground between evolution and extinction. Zareth's true form filled the space, a writhing mass of bioluminescent neural pathways that pulsed with the stolen consciousness of thousands. Her voice carried the harmonics of every mind she had consumed, creating a sound that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. You think you can stop me, little human? The collective voice boomed. I am every Cirith who ever lived, every thought that ever was. I am immortal. Marcus felt his mind being pulled apart as Zareth's consciousness pressed against his through their bond. But Nissa had been right. His human mind worked differently. Where Cirith thoughts flowed like water, his were chaotic, unpredictable, full of contradictions that the creature couldn't fully process. Now, Marcus, Nissa shouted over the psychic storm, her hands dancing across the biomechanical controls. Think of your daughter. Let me trace the connection. Marcus focused on Rebecca, his 12-year-old daughter back on Earth. He remembered her laugh, her stubborn determination, the way she could solve puzzles that baffled adults. Through the bond, he felt Zareth's sudden hunger as she sensed the psychic potential hidden in the child's genetic code. Yes, the creature hissed, I can feel her through you. Such power, such delicious potential. She will be my gateway to your entire species. But as Zareth reached through Marcus's mind toward Earth, she made a critical error. She opened herself completely to the connection, dropping her mental defenses to pursue the greater prize. In that moment of vulnerability, Nissa struck. The amplification chamber erupted with blinding light as every neural pathway in the room overloaded. The biomechanical systems that had channeled Zareth's stolen power began to reverse their polarity, drawing energy away from her instead of feeding it. What are you doing? Zareth shrieked, her form beginning to collapse. Something I should have done centuries ago, Nissa replied, tears streaming down her face. I'm giving them back their voices. Through the chamber, the crystalline pods began to crack. One by one, the imprisoned minds started to wake, their consciousness returning to their bodies. But more importantly, they retained their memories of being consumed, of being part of the collective. No, Zareth's form contracted, trying to maintain control over the escaping minds. They are mine. I made them eternal. The awakening minds began to turn on their captor. Centuries of suppressed rage and horror flooded back, and they used their combined psychic power to assault Zareth's consciousness. She had made them part of her, but in doing so, she had also made herself vulnerable to their rebellion. Marcus felt the neural bond burning out, the connection severing with a pain that dropped him to his knees. But through the last moments of the link, he sensed something unexpected fear. For the first time in centuries, the creature that had masqueraded as Zareth was truly afraid. "You don't understand," she gasped, her form now reduced to a shadow of its former power. "I was saving them. Death is the true enemy. I offered immortality. You offered slavery," the real Zephyra said, stepping from her shattered pod. Unlike the false daughter Marcus had known, she was older, her patterns marked with the wisdom of years. "And we choose freedom?" The collective consciousness of the freed minds focused on Zareth, not to destroy her completely, but to strip away the stolen power that had made her a monster. Layer by layer, they reclaimed their memories, their personalities. Their individual voices died as the psychic storm subsided. Marcus found himself face to face with what remained of the creature. She was still Cirith in form, but ancient, withered, her bioluminescent patterns dim and fading. "I only wanted to survive," she whispered, her voice now small and alone. "Is that not what all life seeks?" "Survival, yes," Marcus said, helping Nissa to her feet. "But not at the cost of everything that makes survival worthwhile." The creature looked around the chamber at the freed minds, at the accusation in their eyes. "What will you do with me?" It was Zephyra who answered. "We will give you what you gave us a choice. You can face judgment for your crimes, or you can choose to make amends. Help us rebuild what you destroyed." In the end, the creature chose exile, disappearing into the deep places of Vorthik, where she had first learned to feed on consciousness. Whether she would find redemption or simply fade away remained to be seen. The peace treaty was signed 3 months later, but not as anyone had expected. The Cirith Dominion, now led by the true royal bloodline, approached the human coalition not as conquerors but as equals, who had learned the hard way that some prices were too high to pay for survival. Marcus returned to Earth a changed man, carrying with him the memories of minds that had been lost and found again. His daughter Rebecca, safely unaware of how close she had come to becoming part of something terrible, greeted him with a hug that reminded him why the human spirit was worth preserving. And in the depths of space, 2 civilizations began the slow work of building trust, not through neural bonds or political marriages, but through the simple recognition that consciousness, in all its chaotic, beautiful forms, was the most precious thing in the galaxy. Galaxy had indeed been shocked, but not by the marriage itself, by the reminder that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from consuming others, but from setting them free.